Kia ora koutou. Welcome back to another episode of Kiwi Cricket Corridor. I'm your host, Vincent Jones, and our other host is Otis Murray. Today on the podcast, we have four main parts that we'll be talking about. We'll be talking about the new men's contracts that were released a few weeks ago, the New Zealand, South Africa, Zimbabwe T20 Tri-Series that is currently taking place in Zimbabwe. We'll also have a preview of the Test Series, and we'll make minor mention of the recently completed Global Super League, which the Central States competed in. Whilst we haven't been on your screens for a while, we're now going to be back with more regular posts for your enjoyment. We'll be discussing all things New Zealand cricket from first 11 secondary school to international cricket. If you haven't caught up recently with us, we've recently moved to Substack. You can find us at kiwicricketchat.substack.com. You'll also be able to find us on our different social channels, X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. Now, moving into today's podcast, we're going to start with the contracts review. So, Otis, can you tell us who the new players are that have joined Northern Districts and jumped onto their contract list for this coming season?
Look, for Northern Districts, they've had Scott Kerguelen come back into the mix. Obviously, he didn't play much franchise cricket last year, as was kind of envisioned, but he has jumped back onto the contracts list, taking up one of those 16 spots. Alongside him coming back is Tim Pringle and Zach Gibson, who were both knocked out to injury last season. And we've got a new guy, Xavier Bellin, who's I think 17. He's looked promising at A cricket. He's looked promising at under 17, under 19 level, first 11 secondary school. He looks like a good player that will bring more to the future of ND cricket.
Now taking us through Auckland, they also have had a new bunch join in, with particular note towards the youth that have been brought through the domestic program that Auckland Cricket outlined in the article on the contracts. They have Harish Kannan, who's recently made the move over from Australia and has been playing in Auckland club cricket. Rohit Gulati, who made his debut across all three formats for Northern Districts last season and has now made the move for Auckland, having also represented Counties Manukau in local cricket. Sid Dixit, who made his debuts in the first class Plunket Shield competition and also the Super Smash, where he played a couple of games but unfortunately fell to a nasty injury when he collided with Ben Lister during the Super Smash last season. Samrat Singh has also joined the squad for this coming season, a pace bowler, and Lockie Stackpole, who has shown promise across all three formats with his batting and also his spin bowling. And the big move and get for Auckland is the opener Dale Phillips, who has made the move up from Otago and so far has seemed to replace Will O'Donnell on the contracts list, who has dropped off. And as Auckland have not yet released their 16th contract, we're quite unsure about what Will O'Donnell's current situation is, with no comments so far made by Auckland Cricket on that front. Now moving on to Central Districts, which Otis will lead us through.
They've had quite a lot of their players have just came back onto the contracts list. I mean, you've got Josh Clarkson and Ajaz Patel have been now dropped off the Blackcaps contract once again for Ajaz. I mean, he doesn't look promising in New Zealand conditions at all for the Blackcaps. And they've also got Doug Bracewell coming back from the franchise league. But their main gain is Dean Foxcroft, who they have taken back from Otago. He was their main man a few years ago for Otago, but his form has seemed to drop off. And from what the ODT said, it might be a little bit of a conflicting issue with the OCA and Foxcroft, which has led him to come back to CD.
Now through Wellington, they have also looked towards their local talent, with the fact that they actually gained an extra spot with Muhammad Abbas moving on to the senior Blackcaps level contract list, and then the retirement of Ian McTeague, followed by the departure of Troy Johnson to the Deep South. Amo Paranjape is a young pace bowler. Oscar Jackson has shown his form for Wellington A and also across the club domestic scene and in Wellington, and Oscar Sam Morgan is their third selection, and he has also shown promise in those same competitions that Jackson has done the same in. Now moving on to Canterbury, which Otis will also take us through.
Ish Sodi, he's been dropped off the Blackcaps contract is what has seemed to be a little bit controversial as he's played a pivotal role in the T20s. Obviously, played over 200 internationals for New Zealand now, but he has came back onto the Canterbury contract list alongside Leo Carter, who has moved back up after a quite underwhelming season in Dunedin for the Volt. Alongside their local talent, Jesse Frew has jumped on basically a swap for Mitch Hay, who has gone into an NZC contract. And now there's also Scott Janet, who's a nice opener who can strike the ball. And he even got his first domestic 100 last season.
And I think that came on debut, didn't it, against Otago?
It was 115 off about, I think it was 116 balls or something like
No.
that.
And then further down the deep south of the country, Troy Johnson and Jack Boyle have moved from Wellington and Central Districts respectively, likely replacing those departures of the two batters in Foxcroft and Phillips. And then they've also gained Danru Ferns, the pace bowler from Auckland, and youngster Mason Clark, who has shown promise in his uh, two formats that he's debuted in the white ball side of things, and likely I think will bring promise to that Otago first class bowling attack as well. Don't you think, Otis? Any more comments from you on the overall of Otago or any other of the other teams?
I'll start on Otago. Look, Dan Ferns, he's a dangerous bowler, and he might be able to replicate what Jacob Duffy has done for them in past seasons, be another domestic stalwart. He's probably got another 4 or 5 years left in him at maximum. However, he can bowl those hard grafting uh, hours for them. He pretty
Mhm.
much replaces Travis Miller, who I must say is a pretty big improvement. Mason Clark, he's a young bowler. He bowls quick. Um, However, it seems he's pretty untested at more than the 2 day level of
Mhm.
school cricket. I mean, he did score 100 last season. However, that was against Tyree College, a pretty weak side, as they would say. However, I mean, Jack Boyle and Troy Johnson are the main gains for them. I mean, Canterbury, look, they've just improved again. Wellington, they're bringing through new talent. Look, CD, they're just bringing in more experienced players. I think CD looks like the team to beat now. And Canterbury, they're the only two sides who have really advanced their team since last season. And I would say the only side that might have had a small improvement are Auckland. But
Mhm.
these other teams, they're struggling behind.
Mhm.
And it's clear that youth is the clear focus on these contracts this season.
Now, talking about Central Districts, obviously they've been at the GSL, the Global Super League over in Guyana, competing against other T20 champions from around the world. So obviously they're going to bring in that knowledge that they learned over there in those conditions, especially if you look at the likes of youngster Curtis Heafy, who showed promise in that win against the Hobart Hurricanes, and also Captain Tom Bruce, who was the team's top run scorer. But I think as well the development that has been shown by Angus Shaw uh, and also Jaden Lennox, along with having some early action shown by Foxcroft, being able to get some time back on the field with those CD players probably will be vital to them as well, and could actually bring them in some preseason advantages that they might have over the other teams of having played those 3.5 games with that one game rained out against Rangipo Riders. But I think I agree with you, Otis, on the fact that the Canterbury CD are probably the top two teams once again. I mean, Auckland have always shown that they are up there, especially in the Ford Trophy sides of things. You know, having regularly made that final over the last few seasons. Um, but I think ND, I mean, they've added some good talent in Pringle, Kugelheim, Gibson. You know, they all show promise, and I think Bell's also a good selection. But you just got to look at what they did last season with with their youngster, whose name I can't actually remember. Hopefully, Otis, you can.
Lucky Ready.
Yes, yes, Lucky Really, yes, that's them. Who actually didn't end up playing across. any game for them, and then was just dropped off the contract list this season. Obviously, though, Pringle's arrival has and return has obviously not helped really for that sake as well. I mean, who are you looking at potentially at some of the weaker sides so far, Otis? What are your thoughts on that side of things?
I mean, you've always got to chuck Otago in that conversation. They're not that
Gotcha.
good. They haven't been good for many, many years. I mean, they've only made a few finals. But Wellington, they're also in a rebuilding phase. I mean, they're targeting youth right now. I mean, ND, it looks like their players, they're just lacking behind. I mean, they don't have any more Black Caps anymore. The ND Black Caps dynasty
Yeah,
has fallen
I
right
think
off.
it's gone to Canterbury
Um,
now, really, hasn't it?
yeah, I'd say Canterbury and Wellington are the
Mm,
two places you want to be as a Black Cap. But I mean, it's just Otago, Indy, and Auckland is who I would say would be the three stragglers. But
hmm
if I had to say one of them would finish bottom of all, it would probably be Indy. I mean, Otago's they've made some improvement. However, I wouldn't say it's major. And
mm,
Auckland, they've brought in quite a lot of youth, and the gain of Dale Phillips is pretty
yeah.
massive for them.
Mm. And I think if we also look over the fact that throughout these contracts, a lot of the teams, apart from really CD, they have got at least one new young player. And actually, a lot of them are holding that domestic experience with only Bell, Kanan, um, Paranjape, Jackson, Morgan, the only ones that actually haven't played domestic cricket out of these the new names on the list, and also the return of some faces, especially Kugeline and Bracewell back to the domestic scene after their T20 stints last season. But just finally on the contract list, Otis, who do you think are a couple of players that the viewers and listeners should watch out for this coming season?
Um, I would say if I had to name a player from each side,
Hmm
Mason Clark's a main one to watch from Otago. I mean, he'll bowl a lot more overs this season, and we'll see if he actually plays any first-class cricket,
hmm
basically replacing the Travis Miller role. However, Troy Johnson could pull off an absolute masterclass, as we
mm
have seen in the past. I mean, if we had to for someone at Canterbury, Scott Janet looks the most
Yeah.
promising. Leo Carter didn't have a great season last year, and Jesse Frew basically in there as a full-time wicket keeper. If I had to say at Wellington, Oscar Jackson would probably be my pick.
hmm
He's a good top order batsman who can whack the ball around. He can play patiently. He's got that all three format potential, which is what the associations target. For CD, I'd say Foxcroft. He's come back up after a past poor few seasons. However, not everyone forgets that he was the best Super Smash player only just 2 or 3 seasons ago.
mm
For Auckland, I would say Dale Phillips is the one to watch for
mm
their whole contract list. I mean, he strikes the ball well, and he's probably in with a place for the Black Cats at a
mm
very, very soon rate. If I had to go for a youngster, though, it would be Sid Dixit,
mm
um, as he does strike that middle order pretty well for the side. If I had to go for ND, obviously Xavier Bell is the young talent. However, if I had to pick one, it would be Tim Pringle, the pretty good spinner.
mm
Obviously, he's pretty good at closing out an inning for the Netherlands and ND in the past, so we
mm
can see what he can do, and he might be able to give Brett Hampden some competition this season.
mm. Now, moving on to the New Zealand versus Zimbabwe and South Africa T20 Tri-Series that's currently taking place. We've seen the Kiwis and the South Africans make the final after Zimbabwe having suffered three defeats so far, two to South Africa and then one to New Zealand. New Zealand also have two more upcoming games before that final, one tomorrow night against South Africa, and then one later in the week against Zimbabwe. So, Otis, do you want to take us through how the team has gone so far, who's been the standout with the bat, with the ball, and how they're tracking in that for the upcoming three games that they've got this week?
Look, Tim Robinson, if he continues scoring like this in both domestic and international cricket, he will be a stalwart in the Black Cap side. He scored 75 off 57 in the first game versus South Africa, a clear knock that was needed after a few players collapsed, not much. As well as Bevan John Jacobs, he scored 44 off 30 in that same inning. He looks like everyone knows that he's a promising player. All I would say for him is he just needs to work on his fielding a bit. I mean, he can take some incredible catches, however,
Yeah.
The ground fielding may need a little bit more work.
Mhm.
I'd say, and then we had Duffy, obviously the number one T20 bowler in the world. He went 3 for 20 off his 4 overs. And then Matt Henry, he was a little bit expensive, but he went for 3 for 34 off 3.2 overs in the first game.
Mhm.
But in the second game versus Zimbabwe, Devon Conway scored a calm knock of 59, proving why he should remain in the side, even
Mhm.
though he is now 35 years old. Um, so it might be his time very soon. Might be the next T20 World Cup in New Zealand and Australia. It might be the next ODI World Cup in India. But it might. No one really knows. But Matt Henry obviously pulled out another good performance, going 3 for 26 off his 4 overs as well.
Mhm. So I mean, obviously those guys have been the performers, and we've always known that. I mean, I think there has been some known in the domestic scene that Jacobs actually would go on to that international level and dominate. I think we've also seen that with other youngsters around the globe. Obviously, you look at Mitch Owen, who today I think scored a maiden T20 half century on debut for the Australians against the West Indies. So obviously, there is something going right here in New Zealand if we are having, those young players coming in and performing with that, with those knocks of 44 not out. Even though it wasn't the explosive innings until that back end. I think that we've really known from Jacobs. I think he's also shown over the last, wee while, especially in that back end of the season in the domestic system in New Zealand, that he can not just score runs, but he can also play to the situation, which I think is something that a lot of players, sometimes struggle with. I mean, what do you think of that, Otis?
Yeah, I mean, we saw it last season where CD posted up a
Was
cool
it
calm
700? Yeah.
700 at I think it was about 750 down at the Eden Park Outer Oval. And Auckland still had all the time in the world, and they couldn't even get close to it. Obviously, Jacobs had to block it out for the draw that day.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, he's played some calm innings. He's got his maiden first class 100.
Mm,
I think he's got very close to his maiden 1 day 100. And obviously T20 100's probably not far away at this rate.
mm,
Is the way he scores and hits the
mm,
ball, especially if Auckland collapse early.
mm,
But it still remains to be seen whether he can perform. But
mm,
obviously he's probably made that position his own for
yeah.
another few years, I'd say.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that, that number six spot has been something that New Zealand has probably often given to all-rounders like Neesham, and also previously the likes of Colin de Grandhomme. Obviously, Jacobs hasn't really shown. I think he bowled a few overs in that game against Central Districts that you referred to before, but apart from that, hasn't really rolled the arm over. So obviously, he's a batter, and that's his role in the team. Um, he might, find himself in situations where he's coming out with 10 overs to go again, or he might find himself with, five balls, where he's trying to hit as many runs as he can off those last few balls. But I think for him as well, that IPL deal that he received with Mumbai, I think is also testament to the fact that there are people out there saying, this guy is good. He is looking good, and we think he could be part of the future of hopefully not just T20 cricket for him, but hopefully playing across all three formats for New Zealand. Like I think he has referenced in a couple of news articles that have been floating around on the New Zealand news websites. But also New Zealand have a test series up against Zimbabwe that we do have a preview up on our website of that you can have a look at. Do you want to take us through the key points from that squad and if any injury updates that we have seen out of that New Zealand camp, Otis?
Glenn Phillips has obviously been ruled out for that
Mm,
series. That's not great for him. However, it may see him also come back into the domestic foray at the start of the season. Obviously, there are a few games against England to start the New Zealand summer. However, it remains to be tested if Rob Walter wants to maybe try something different in those. But we've also seen a maiden call up for Matt Fisher.
mhm,
He's a very quick bowler.
mhm,
However, he's also been seen as a very spray bowler
mm,
by lots. So he might come to fruition. However, it's waiting to be seen. I mean, he has
Mhm.
picked up wickets on the domestic
Yeah.
circuit. However, it's been tried and tested that players who bowl line and length are also the ones who are the most effective.
Mhm.
Jacob Duffy has been called up once again. He's still uncapped for the New Zealand Test side. He will most likely make his Test debut in this series. Obviously, the number one T20 bowler in the world. I think he's like number nine or something for one day. He's a very good bowler. He's been a domestic stalwart and he deserves this opportunity.
Mhm.
Henry Nicholls has also been recalled for the first time since 2023. Obviously, Rob Walter has not looked to the domestic scene. I mean, Dale Phillips is available, um, and Dean Foxcroft and Josh Clarkson. However, he's decided not to go for them, and it's clear that he wants experience in
Mhm.
his new look New Zealand side.
Yeah, I suppose talking about those players that did miss out there, I suppose you could also look at the likes of Reece Murray, Mitch Hay, Mohammed Abbas, who are all, with Hay and Abbas both being on New Zealand contracts, and missing out. Obviously, Nichols was on one too. I think there was a few surprises when everyone saw his name on that list. But obviously, he did show some form in that latter half of the domestic scene when he came back from an injury that he still does have plenty to offer. Obviously, I think there are a few people maybe saying, Nickel shouldn't be there. Obviously, if he gets his chance, he'll want to take it because I think he may not have too many more in the ODI scene. Obviously, he did get a replacement injury call up, I think, for that New Zealand versus Pakistan series at the back end of the summer, but he didn't really put in a score of note, unlike Hay and Abbas, where they sort of dominated that middle order, and also Murray with 50. Um, but I think also if you look at Nichols, he's been a proven he's played all three formats for his country. Obviously he's got that's something to be proud of. Obviously some players don't get that opportunity and he has. And there have been at times where he's churned up a good score for the Kiwis and got them out of trouble. Obviously he'll be wanting to try and do that again, to try and cement his way back into that Test side and put up some big scores of note. Obviously I think we saw Mulder score 360 odd against Zimbabwe just couple last week, I think it was. And obviously, I think for him, he decided to declare and not pass that score of 400 that was made by Brian Lara. But I think if we look at the Kiwis, there has been some looking at the domestic system from Walter. I think the call up of Fisher, he said, I want a pace bowler. Obviously, no Ben Sears available. He probably would have been there over Sears. No Jameson available. Jameson would have been there over him, and Sears would have as well. But yeah, I think I agree with you. Duffy is probably going to make his debut with the likes of O'Rourke, Henry, potentially also going for a spinner in either Patel or Mitch Santner. I would guess they'll probably go with Santner for the first game just because he has shown how he can do well with the bat as well. And he might likely take that number 8 spot, or even potentially could look him at number 7, where Phillips has batted in the past. And obviously, there will be a replacement player named for Phillips. We don't have that a name yet, and the New Zealand Cricket will release that, they said, in due course. So I think to finish up, Otis, any final comments from you across the things we've discussed today, or is that it?
It looks like it's going to be an exciting next few months for New Zealand cricket. I mean, we'll have domestic cricket back in the
Yeah.
next few months. I think it's only about three and a half months away at max. And then we also got international cricket
Mm.
also right around the corner very soon as well in our home in our backyard
Yeah.
in Aotearoa. So we'll be excited for that. However,
Yeah.
we're going to keep the coverage up of all things New Zealand cricket. I mean, the overseas players. There's been quite a lot of them this season.
Mm.
Uh, Quite a lot of New Zealand Blackcaps games that are coming up in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
So we'll see about those as well.
So I mean, it's a great time to be a New Zealand sports fan and New Zealand sports cricket fan. And obviously that's why you're listening to us because you love cricket. So we hope you've enjoyed today's episode, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one. Please like, subscribe, share with your friends who love the sport, and comment to let us know your thoughts. on anything we've discussed today or anything at all New Zealand cricket, and we'll look to include some more of your thoughts in the upcoming episodes. We have reviews of the GSL coming out on our Substack tomorrow, the 22nd of July. We also have other pieces that we're going up on our Substack. You can find us on there, kiwicricketchat.substack.com. You can find us Kiwi Cricket Korero over on X, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere you want to listen to your podcast. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you all later.